I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion, and we are going to talk about some big news in the world of gaming because this week we finally got details on the Nintendo Switch 2. Now listen, Nintendo Switch has been out for some time. I think the original console came out in 2017, becomes one of the top selling consoles of all time, so there's been a lot of anticipation over, okay, what's going to be the deal with the Nintendo Switch 2? What are the stakes of this new console? Well, we finally have that. And Jonathan Orr was there at the release event, and now he joins me to talk about this whole new console. Jonathan, welcome to Commotion.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. I'm excited that you're here to talk about Nintendo Switch and whether it was worth the wait. Let's just get right into it. Why is the launch of Nintendo Switch such a big deal? Why are people in such high anticipation of this console?
Yeah, new console launches do not happen very often. You know, like for your iPhones, your tech gadgets, they kind of have a good rhythm of one every year or so. But this is the first Nintendo console in about 8 years. We have not had another new console from Sony or Microsoft in a little over 5 years. So there's a lot of anticipation. The market is primed, as one analyst told me. So yeah, and the tech jump from something from 8 years ago to now is kind of pretty impressive. Nintendo Switch has been kind of underpowered. Nintendo's historically put out maybe not bleeding edge tech to make it more durable, more reliable, easier to run, more affordable. But this time, Nintendo kind of needs to catch up to all the other high-tech gadgets, just basically to run the new games that they want to do.
I should say, Jonathan, you're usually based in Toronto, but this was such a big deal that you are currently, I'm talking to you right now in New York because you are like, I'm down here for this launch. And that's, I think, tells us the stakes of the launch of this new Nintendo Switch. The idea that Nintendo Switch, the original one, comes out in 2017, the world has changed a lot since then. Tell me about what's at stake for Nintendo with this new Switch.
Oh, the world has changed. I mean, yes, it has. It's hard to tell what's at stake with Nintendo because Nintendo is kind of weird. They never really march to the beat to the other drum beats of the games industry or the tech industry. I mean, it's important to remember that Nintendo is, as a company, more than 130 years old. They started making playing cards way back when. So video games is like actually a relatively recent part of its history.
I don't think I knew that.
But yeah, it's fascinating. So Sony makes games, but they also, make, hardware and equipment. Microsoft is a software company. For both of those companies, gaming as its sector is kind of a rounding error. But for Nintendo, this is all they do. And there's a lot right on Nintendo. I think a lot of it is kind of like reputation or maybe erased in some of the recent history. So Nintendo kind of has an on again, off again rhythm with some of its console sales. So like the Wii was a huge hit several years ago.
Yeah.
Its follow-up, the Wii U, was a massive bomb. If you go back, like, their secondary systems tend to be a little bit less impressive than like the first big splashes. The Switch 1 was a phenomenal success. It sold 150 million units around the world. That makes it the third best-selling video game console of all time. The Switch 2, it looks to be pretty impressive, and it seems as though Nintendo has taken it fairly conservatively. They haven't gone in too many weird directions, because they kind of need to ride on that success and to build on that success, as opposed to throwing it all away and rebooting it, their systems and their gaming business for something entirely different, which makes sense for Nintendo, for what they're doing right now. But it is kind of like, oh, it's just called the Switch 2. Like, they've never done that before.
I should say, like, I feel like I'm burying the lead here because you got a chance to try this thing. Tell me about that experience. What aspects of the original Switch experience does it improve on? Like, what kind of improvement is it?
Yeah, so a lot of games media came down to New York to get a kind of a hands-on experience with the Switch 2. They kind of herded us in some big room to watch the Nintendo Direct stream, which is live streamed around the world. So we all got like a live reaction of ourselves as we were watching that. But yeah, then we got to go to the Switch 2 experience that was set up in New York, which some members of the public, if they won a lottery system, they'll be able to try it out later this week. And the experience is going to come down to Toronto later in the month. But yeah, like, we got to put our hands on the Switch 2. We got to play a lot of the new announced games, way more than I think a lot of us had anticipated. We got to play the new Mario Kart, the new the new Donkey Kong game, the new Metroid Prime game, a whole bunch of third-party games, and yeah, just kind of see how it felt. I mean, I can talk about like touching and holding the Switch 2 now. Like it's really familiar. It's kind of strange because it's a new system, but like all of its dimensions, its contours, like it feels like you're holding an original Switch, but it's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit sturdier. It's almost all black. It's almost all black, which is kind of disappointing because it's like, oh, it's like every other tech gadget. It doesn't really have that kind of joie de vivre of a Nintendo device. But yeah, it's sturdy. The Joy-Con controllers, which are the detachable joysticks or remotes, they used to kind of slide onto the system with like kind of a latch system on the original Switch, but the new one has magnets, so it kind of like snaps on and off a little bit more seamlessly. I mean, it's weird because like a Nintendo system, and we're talking about a new Nintendo system, and I'm talking about magnets. I don't know if this is the most riveting experience. But yeah, we saw the game running on handheld mode and on like large 4K TVs. Everything looks super sharp. It looks super crisp. When you connect to a TV, it has 4K resolution. It has HDR. When you're in handheld mode, it can run up to 120 frames per second, which, I don't know if even my eyes can even figure that out. But yeah, the Nintendo Switch has always been kind of underpowered compared to the other current consoles in PC gaming. So it seems though they've really caught up on the hardware technical specification side.
When you mentioned the joie de vivre of other Nintendo consoles, I think of the Wii. It's bright. I think of the Super Nintendo. It has purple on it. That was fun. So the idea of like an all black console, I don't know. That feels boring to me. Having said that, though, it's about the gaming experience, and that's what this is really about. With about a minute left here, Jonathan, if I already have a Switch at home, do I need to go and upgrade to the Switch 2? Like, is there any value in that?
I mean, that's a big question. The problem with the value is that they announced the price kind of like quietly at the end of the event. In Canada, the Switch 2 is going to cost $629.99,
Whoa.
which is about $200 more than the original Switch came out. There's a bundle that comes with Mario Kart World, the brand new Mario Kart, which looks fantastic. I got some rounds in. It's really, really good. There's an open world element. It's super, super fun. That's $700. That's a pretty big ask for people who want to get into gaming. The Switch has always been family friendly, affordable. It's a pretty big ask. I think Nintendo's first party games will always be there. It's their sauce. There's nobody makes games like Nintendo does. So like if you want a new Zelda, or new Mario, new Donkey Kong, the Switch 2 will be where you need to go.
Jonathan, I appreciate your time. I also appreciate that, like, anyone who's in New York talking to us on the show, we are going to have sirens in the background. That's just a thing that is going to happen. Thanks for being there and covering the Nintendo Switch 2, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. Jonathan Orr is a senior writer for CBC Radio Digital. The Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be out on June 5th.